Well, the entire crypto market has shit the bed. This wasn't actually an unusual scenario, and we have been talking about a move in the market to the downside for quite some time. Let's roll that intro and discuss what's going on with Bitcoin. Okay guys, so we saw Bitcoin kind of get really heavily sold off earlier this morning, and it has led into a lot of liquidations for Bitcoin and for the crypto market. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit around what's going on at the point of recording this video and what I think this might mean going further forward. So obviously Bitcoin dropped down to 40,750 USDT on the Binance spot chart. Now this will be different depending on the different types of exchanges and contracts and various different things, but for the most part we're just going to say Bitcoin wicked down, crashed down to 40,750 earlier today. Now from here we have recovered a little bit. We've bounced up towards $42,000 and yeah, it's still not looking overly strong. Ultimately, there's a little bit of buying pressure here as people are trying to work out whether or not what's being circulated from the news across Twitter and so forth is true or not. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. But before we talk about that, let's talk about those wrecked positions and my position on the market at the moment. Okay, before we talk about what's potentially fueling this move. So we have seen over $630 million in liquidations for the crypto space. This is pretty sizable. It's not the most we've seen, it's not the smallest amount we've seen either, but it's a very sizable amount of liquidations in the space. Bitcoin makes up 125 million, so actually Bitcoin hasn't been affected the most. If we think about like from a percentage point of view of the 630 million, although Bitcoin makes up a sizable position, you'd expect it to be potentially more than it actually is. So that's actually a positive for Bitcoin. It's held up better than maybe you'd expect. Some of the altcoins though have of course really pulled back quite aggressively. Some are holding their areas at the moment. I mean, Cardano's ADA's holding well at the moment, for example, but many of the others have kind of pulled back quite aggressively. And of course, this puts us in a great position to be thinking about what happens next from the altcoin point of view, as well as the kind of the Bitcoin point of view. Okay, now obviously I've been walking around the woods for a few months and weeks, and in the last few weeks I've been talking about how we need to see a healthy correction, right? Not just in these walk and talk videos, but also on the technical analysis videos as well. Specifically at the macro levels of the weekly and monthly timeframes, we know that Bitcoin is looking for bigger corrections that we've seen so far. The corrections that we've seen for Bitcoin at the moment are basically just the beginning of a much larger corrective structure that is likely to emerge. And we are quite clearly at an impulsive breakdown at the moment, but it's the very early stages of it. So I think all the areas that I've been talking about most recently are still very much the case, that we are likely to see them being pulled into fruition. Basically meaning 37,000 is kind of the first area I'm expecting to find decent level of support. So although we have found support at the moment for Bitcoin around that kind of $40,000 level, and this is a historical support level, and specifically we bounced on the 50 EMA on the daily time frame, but ultimately what we will be looking for here is a breakdown 40,000 towards 36, 37. Okay, that's going to be the first area where I expect a significant bounce, in some area where I'm likely to think that Bitcoin is going to rally up a little bit further. There's a lot of wildlife here in the woods this morning, it would appear. And so, see if I can drown them out by pointing the camera the other way. And so I'm expecting 36, 37 to be a good bouncing area, but we are not likely to move up massively at that point. And I do expect further price action to the downside from there, where we are talking about ultimately heading towards $30,000. This is going to be the key area for Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin cannot hold $30,000, then we are going to be expecting Bitcoin to be heading down towards $24,000 to $26,000. Okay, so what is fueling all of these corrections? Right? We are on the right side of the trade. Okay, my short position, I was never able to get out of it and go long. So we were, of course, still in my short position, and I think that's going to perform very, very nicely. So my position on this has always been the case that we should be thinking about shorts down towards $30,000. Now, I'm no financial advisor, I'm just a guy walking around some woods, holding a camera, telling you his thoughts and opinions on the market. And my thoughts and opinions are quite clear that I'm expecting Bitcoin to head down towards $30,000. Now, that's been a very bearish thought process that I've had for weeks, right? And I've been ridiculed on the video comments and on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it's all kind of part and part of the game. Ultimately, with everything in life, you don't move up in any particular direction or down in any particular direction without significant retracements. And that's ultimately what we're looking for. So my position remains very much the same. I'm looking to short Bitcoin. I'm in my short for Bitcoin, and I'm going to hold that towards $30,000. Liquidation price is very comfortable, and so it's very unlikely to get liquidated. I quite happily would have held my short position for 50k if I needed to. So, what's causing all the panic in the market at the moment? Now, you may have heard, you may have seen online, you may see other YouTube videos or TikToks, or even on the mainstream media, Twitter and so forth, that there are reports that the SEC are going to reject all BTC spot ETF applications. And there's no real kind of news to say that they are definitely guaranteeing to do this, but there are people out there writing articles and speculating that they are in fact going to essentially reject all of them. And then there's other articles that have all come out together today as well, also sharing the idea that the SEC are just going to delay every single Bitcoin spot ETF. And this is where my thought process has been for a little while. It doesn't really matter whether the spot ETFs are approved, rejected, or delayed. The same kind of scenario that I've had with XRP and the lawsuit. It doesn't matter whether XRP and Ripple are to win or Ripple are to lose, or there's going to be a settlement. I think the outcome is always going to be the same, right? So in Ripple's case, price will go up regardless of the outcome because there's clarity. And when we have these Bitcoin spot ETFs, regardless of whether it is approved, rejected, or delayed, I think the outcome was always going to be the same. Ultimately, we should be expecting a big sell the news event. I've been through this a number of different times. And so I don't think my opinions have changed. I think they're very much the same right now. And all we're really doing here is getting some mainstream media or some articles getting shared, spreading a little bit of fear, uncertainty and doubt into the market around what is going on with the Bitcoin spot ETF, specifically as we start to edge ever so closer to those deadlines that the SEC has, and whether or not they'll get approved. Ultimately, whether approval was going to happen or not, the exact same outcome in my mind was that we're going to see a massive sell-off event. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about the sell-off events and what I think is likely to unfold, then you should check this video out right here, where I discuss all the previous Sell the News events.